Good morning. Today is Friday, December 1st, 2023. Let's go back to the Parsha before last week's Parsha, the Torah portion of Toldot, and ask the following question. Was Yaakov right to deceive his father and take Esav's bracha? Yitzchak meant to give a bracha to Esav, and through deception, Yaakov took it. Was he right? And the corollary to that was his mother, Rivka, was she right in coming up with a plan in the first place and encouraging Yaakov to carry it out? Because remember, they were a team. It was Rivka's idea. She helped him do it. She encouraged him to do it. Were they right? So here's one way to interpret the narrative. Rivka was right. And Yaakov was right to listen to her. Rivka knew that it would be Yaakov, not Esav, who would continue the covenant of his father Yitzchak and the covenant of Abraham into the future. After all, she was a prophetess. And if Rivka was right, then Yaakov was right to follow her. Remember, Rivka is the woman that Abraham's servant Eliezer had chosen to be the wife for his master, for Yitzchak, because she was so kind, because at the well she had given water to a stranger and also to his animals. Rivka was the embodiment of loving kindness. She certainly never would have acted out of favoritism or ambition. And if she had no other way of ensuring that the blessing went to the one who would cherish it and live it, then in this case, the end justified the means, that she had to use this ruse in order for Yaakov to get the bracha. So this is one way to understand the narrative, and this is the approach of several of our classic commentators. Rashi says this, Rabbi Bechaye says this, Ibn Ezra says this, Radak, others. This is the opinion of many of our commentators. And it appears to be supported within the text of the Torah. Again, back to Toldot. So, Vayikasher kila Yitzchak levareches Yaakov. So, Yaakov manages to disguise himself in front of his father Yitzchak because Yitzchak is blind. And Yaakov takes the blessing. And it was as soon as Yitzchak finished giving the blessing to the person he thought he was Esav, but it was really Yaakov. And Yaakov had just left the tent. The Esav achiv ba mitzedo, and now Esav comes. And Esav says, come, eat the meal that I have prepared for you, he says to his father Yitzchak, bavor tevarchani nafshecha, in order for you to bless me. You said you were going to bless me. Vayomer lo Yitzchak aviv miato. Yitzchak says to him, who are you? Vayomer ani bincha b'charcha Esav. I'm your firstborn son. I'm Esav. At that moment, Yitzchak realized that he's been tricked. And he actually gave the bracha meant for Esav to Yaakov. Vayecharad Yitzchak harada gadolad ma'od, and Yitzchak trembled a great trembling. Vayomer mi'efa hu hatzad sayed v'yaveli v'ochal mikol b'terem tavo v'arachayu. Who was it who just came before and brought me a meal and I blessed him? Listen to the next words. Gam baruch yiyeh. So should he remain blessed. Those last three words, which seem to be superfluous, who is this person who came before you and brought me this meal and I blessed him? And then Yitzchak says, Gam baruch yiyeh, he should stay blessed. In other words, it appears that Yitzchak understands at that moment that he was tricked and he acquiesces. He ratifies the bracha that he gave to Yitzchak, yes, to Yaakov, yes, I want that bracha to go to Yaakov. Okay. Many of our commentators understand the narrative this way. However, this is not the only approach, because there is another group of commentators that asks us to consider the consequences of this deception. Because of this deception, Yaakov had to run away from home and stay away from home for more than 20 years, fearing for his life. Finally, he's living with Lavan, and when he wants to be married to to Rachel, Lavan tricks him, and he marries Leah instead, and Yaakov cries out, Lama rimisani, why did you trick me? Why did you deceive me? And Lavan says to him, it's not done that way in our place, that the younger goes before the older. The older gets married first. Leah's older. She gets married first. But listen to how Lavan's words seem to be a rebuke to what happened before. Here, we don't do what you did at home, where you usurped the order, and you, although you were younger, took the bracha of your older brother Esav. Here we don't do that. It appears that Lavan is punishing him. And the result of Lavan's deception brings grief to Yaakov for the rest of his life. There was tension, jealousy, competition between Leah and Rachel. There was hatred between their children. Yaakov was deceived again, this time by his sons when they brought him the coat of many colors, which we'll learn about next week, that was stained with blood. And the result of that is that Yaakov was deprived of the company, the companionship of his most beloved son for 22 years. Just like Yitzchak lived with Yaakov away for almost the same number of years. Rav Yehuda Amital says it clearly. Yaakov pays a price for his actions regarding the attainment of the birthright. Nechama Leibowitz writes even more clearly. The vicissitudes of Yaakov's life teach us at every step how he was repaid measure for taking advantage of his father's blindness. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs suggests that Yaakov eventually came to understand this in the beginning of our Torah portion, when he is forced to wrestle with this strange person, man, angel, whatever it is at the beginning of our Parsha, and then meets with Esav. And the words that are said at the meeting with Esav are very hard to understand unless we understand that at this reunion, Yaakov is giving back the blessings that he took through deception. He's giving it back. Listen to what he says. First, he bows down. Yaakov bows down to Esav, showing obedience, respect to him. And then Yaakov says these words. Maybe we don't focus on them, but Yaakov says to Esav these words, Kach na es birchasi asher hu vasalach. Yaakov said to Esav, please take the blessing that was brought to you. Take it back. I don't want it. I don't need it. I should not have taken it. I don't want it. The pasuk seems to say it very, very clearly. And according to this reading of the Torah, Rivka and Yaakov made a mistake. It's a forgivable mistake. It's an understandable mistake. They understood it differently. But it's a mistake. And so, according to Rabbi Sachs and others who follow this approach, what we have here is a story that we understand one way the first time we hear it, when we learn Parshat Toldot, it seems to us that Rivka and Yaakov have a good reason for doing what they are doing. But then as we go further in the narrative in this week's Parsha, and next week's to the end of Bereshis, when we reflect on everything that happens in the rest of Yaakov's life, when we read about what happened to Yaakov in Lavan's house, and the tension between Rachel and Leah, and the animosity between Joseph and his brothers, then we can go back to Parshat Toldot and read it in a whole different way. And what the Torah is teaching us is there is such a thing as an honest mistake. And it is a mark of Yaakov's greatness in our Torah portion, VaYishlach, that Yaakov recognized it and made amends to Esav. Here, take it back. I should not have taken it from you. Take it back. And in this great encounter, after 22 years of estrangement, the brothers meet, they embrace, and they part as friends. But first, Yaakov had to realize that he had made a mistake. This is how the moral life goes. We learn by making mistakes. And the Torah teaches us over and over about the mistakes of even our greatest heroes and heroines, so that we'll see how they learn from their mistakes. We live life forward, but we only understand it looking back. Only then do we see the wrong turns that we inadvertently made. But those moments when we see the mistakes that we have made, those moments, that discovery is sometimes our greatest moment of moral truth. And this is the lesson that every one of us must take from Yaakov in our portion of VaYishlach. My friends, I wish you a great day and a beautiful Shabbos. And I look forward to seeing you soon in person.